My name is Perri Lynch Howard. I'm an artist based in Twisp, Washington. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I work in sculpture, painting, drawing, and sound. And I'm honored and elated to be working with Emmy Award-winning acoustic ecologist and artist, Gordon Hempton. And perhaps surprisingly, we actually have a third collaborator, or maybe muse, and that is the soul and spirit of Doris Leeper herself, the founder of the Atlantic Center for the Arts and Canaveral National Seashore, and an amazing artist in her own right. As a result of staying in the Doris Leeper House, we've had the enormous privilege of living in her legacy for the past 4 weeks, and she has been a frequent topic of and contributor towards our conversations, I'd say.
And I would have to say, too, that it was an unexpected collaborator because I knew nothing about Doris coming out here. I came out here for the arts opportunity at the field station. And all I knew is I was staying in the Doris Leeper House, for whatever that means. And then the place itself and all that it was speaking to me, the sounds, the location, was so strong. And comically saying, I came down one day and I said, the window broke. Not that I broke the window,
oh, no.
but the window broke. And that got me thinking about the windows in Doris Leeper and how she basically did things that we don't do today. Her windows were open. She didn't have air conditioning. The sounds came through into while she slept, and we all listened while we slept. So that's when everything really exploded for me, that, you know, the influence of the environment which influenced this, but more later.
No, that's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to Doris's Night, by all likelihood. But let's go with Doris Leeper Morning.
Morning, yeah.
Based on historical records and research. Listening is not what you think. If you're thinking, you're thinking. You aren't listening. And that is something that we can fix. I believe that after the weeks I've spent here, Doris Leeper, she was a listener. She was a listener who followed her feelings and made her way to a place that is nicknamed Capers Acres.
One of the goals that Doris had in her art is to engage the viewer so that the object itself was not important to her. What was important was the viewer's relationship to the art. And artists are typically, in my experience, one way or another. Either they make artwork and they really want to be understood and they want the work to be clearly understood, or they make the artwork and they want to leave everything else up to interpretation. So isn't it interesting in Doris's work that there's a high level of execution, there is a high level of detail, deep rigor in her image making and sculpture making, but she really then completely let go and opened it up to the viewer to effectively complete the work in one way.
Yeah,
what
the viewer would find in her art was of no concern with her as an artist. What motivated her in her art was that her art was interesting enough and engaged you enough that you had the artistic experience of getting involved and things were happening to you. Change was happening. That's the big difference between art and entertainment. Entertainment, you might have a good time and it consumes your time, but after that, you're the same person you were before. Art, the idea is that you aren't the same person that you were before in whatever small or large way. Yeah.
So Gordon, some of the things when there's a wonderful biography of Doris Leeper that we were given by Eve when we arrived, and it has plates of her artwork in it. And one interpretation I really enjoyed that you brought was, what did you hear? What do you hear when you look at her images?
As soon as I opened up Doris's work, it's like, whoa, these are insects. There are insects, although what you might see are concentric diamonds laced together with different, but the insects are high frequencies. They evolved first. They took those high frequencies because they take the least energy to produce, and they have so many numbers that it would be ridiculous for birds or frogs to compete with that came later, because they just had it. It's like that they were first on the scene. And the insects, the repetition in the pattern, the frequency, the whole way that it was, to me, they were the insects around Leeper's house.
Yeah, I was led by insect sounds, pulsing rhythm, blocks of color. I mean, she evolved within the modernist movement in the United States, so there was a lot of that happening, but she definitely has her own unique style. And one thing that I kept thinking of with the diamonds and the patterns is sort of the nature of folding. And to me, many of her artworks, and I hope you all get to see them, those of you that are not familiar, this will make more sense. But I could look at those patterns, the diamonds, the geometry, almost as if it was something that had been folded up at one point and now it was unfurled. So when I looked at Doris Leeper's work, one thing that came to mind very strongly is the question of, are these self-portraits? Was she living a life as this force of nature, finding, the founder of ACA, all that she did for Canaveral, all that she did for the community, and sort of folding herself, if you will, into different shapes to execute the various functions that she was so passionate about executing. But then, when she got out to Capers Acres, she was able to unfurl. And that was one of my deepest impressions of her and looking at the work.
Yeah, looking at the work, her commitment to the arts, I mean, this whole place stands in tribute to her commitment to not just the arts, but the way art was happening during her time. That the painters were separate from the sculptors, separate from the dancers, separate from the musical composer, and that the arts need to have these discussions, of which immediately, you know, Perri has come from a long line of visual art training and practice her whole life, and I'm relatively new to the art, and so just the transfer and the interface between art and science contributed to a lot of, I think, really genuine creativity and direction towards not only this project, but projects that each of us may do together or independently in the future. And without this opportunity for the collaboration, that discussion never would have happened. Right. I mean, it'd be a random opportunity, you know. And so she was really insightful about that. She also had this phrase that she used. Her goal was to find ACA a location of real estate that had the same wonderful sense. She doesn't go into detail. Wonderful sense of Capers Acres. And that to me was really, really sucked me in, because what she was trying to achieve couldn't happen anywhere. It had to have the same wonderful sense, and she worked alone, except when she had help, assistance, you know, through her large and complicated, very patterned sculptures and all of that. She lived alone. So what contributed to that wonderful sense? And that was basically what is now Canaveral National Seashore. So we spent not just time, many hours rendering ourselves vulnerable as artists to not only what was obviously wonderful to us personally on who we were, but also who she was.
I love a challenge, I guess. The way you normally do things, it's all going to be a plus. While I was there, I'm basically self-taught. All that, say that. The rest is very It's amazing. We were also talking about, it made all the difference in the world. We were asked that question, maybe if there was a little activity, there was. One of the things that is extraordinary opportunity. I kept thinking about this. It's remarkably like I would have killed for an opportunity like that, but I think it's important to know I'm happy to do what I want to do, playing in my own land, whatever they want to do that period of time. One of the funny things about this whole field is I was never thinking into sharing with other artists. People have asked me that repeatedly, well, of all the people who had this idea, because you've always worked alone. Places writer, dance, time, be always a lot mecca. Place, no way. Dog, and then Bible. In my mind, in the music, supporting the environment, I was there. It happened. Sculptures work together. Indeed, hear me out. The art, it was enough indivisible design, leap of faith. And I thought, and that's the part that seemed to be the idea I suddenly thought, an idea, not possible, was possible. positivity, lifelong love, communication, cross fertilization. I love a challenge, I guess, the way you normally do things. It's all going to be a plus. While I was there, I'm basically self-taught. Well, that is to say that the rest of the main piece of belief we're also talking about, it made all the difference in the world. We were asked that question, maybe if there was a little epiphany, there is, and there was. One of the things I need to say is this extraordinary opportunity. I kept thinking about it. It's remarkably like I would have